Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, please. Give Russ just a sec to find his chair. Good evening and welcome to the May 6, 2013 meeting of the UHS number 6 School Board. Nice evening, and we have a fair amount on the agenda, and we'll have to stay in here till we get it done, but hopefully we'll move right through it. First, we'll start with the clerk's report. We have 2 meetings of minutes to approve, our regular meeting in April and an April 22nd special meeting. So we'll start with the April 1st meeting.
I move approval of the minutes of April 1st.
Okay.
Second.
Heard a second. I didn't see where it came from. Okay. All right. Any additions, deletions, corrections? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes of our April 1st regular meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Then the April 22nd special meeting. Is there a motion?
Move the minutes of the April 2nd meeting.
Second.
22nd.
Meeting.
Second.
Okay, Ruth. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those? If not, all in favor? Please say
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay.
That was, where was that held in Vernon?
That was in Vernon.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, there were 3. Yeah, okay, 3 abstentions. Okay. Are there, I have a communication. Does anybody else before I go? Okay, well, I have a communication that I think we should all be pleased with, and the credit goes to a lot of folks in here, but this is from the Office of the Governor. Dear Woody, thank you for your recent email regarding Brattleboro Union High School's budget. I appreciate your taking the time to share your news. I sent him an email. He was on one of his tears about education costs and keeping budgets under control, and I felt that I was quite proud of what this group had done, and so I sent him a note and I got a letter back. I sincerely appreciate the thoughtful consideration that went into developing the budget for BUHS. Please know I recognize the challenges you face as you continue your efforts to provide a quality education in an affordable manner. Keep up the good work. Sincerely, Pete. So, he paid attention and gave us some recognition. Good job budgeting under the circumstances. Any other communications? Okay. Anything else for the clerk's report? Okay, we'll move on to recognition of groups and visitors. I think everybody here is part of the operation, so I don't see any visitors. So in that case, we will move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion? Melanie, we're going to consent agenda?
Second.
Second. Lori? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll start with finance.
Okay, finance met on April 3rd at 7 a.m. and approved the following warrants. Warrant number 1188 through 1191 and 1193 through 1195 for a total of $328,154.15, and payrolls for March 8th of $477,798.82, and March 22nd in the amount of $365,923.24. We also discussed the press box, which Mr. Woodworth will talk about later. And we discussed the Eames Fund Award, which Mr. Woodward will talk about later. And we have had a draft proposal for a travel, out-of-district travel in the United States policy. So that was what we did at that meeting, and then we had a meeting on the 17th of April, but those warrants didn't get into the agenda for this time, so we'll have to do those next time. What else we did? So that's the Finance Committee report, unless someone else who was there remembers other things.
Yeah, as regards to the Eames Fund, I wasn't sure whether we need to, that was approved from a Finance Committee perspective, and I don't have a specific proposal for the board here. And I thought in the past we used to just do that on the Finance Committee basis and report out, but we can bring it up under new business and review what it is that we came up with. The Eames Fund is a significant fund that scholarships are provided for each year, and it's the responsibility of particularly the Finance Committee to determine, based on the results of the fund, dispersion of funds. Typically, in most years, we have awarded $3,000 each to three worthy students, and it can continue for up to 3 years for that each student, as long as they continue to be an endeavor related to arts and, is it architecture too, or do you remember, Sean? Something, careers in that area. So the performance and the fund is handled by 2 fund managers, Wells Fargo Advisors, Andy Rome and Phil George at, I always get confused with this, A.G. Edwards or?
Edward Jones.
Yeah, Edward Jones. Okay, yeah. A.G. Edwards and Edward Jones always used to get me confused. And it's handled about evenly. This was a very, very good year. We will be getting a visit or a report from each financial advisor, but they both performed extremely well. And our feeling was that we should continue to award 3 new ones and continue for the students who are in the 2nd and 3rd year to award $3,000 grants, which would be $27,000. And that can be very comfortably done based on the amount of interest that the fund has generated. We have not ever dipped, and we're not allowed to dip into principal. It's strictly on the growth of the fund.
And actually, I had that we voted on that at the April 17th meeting.
Okay, yeah, it was on the agenda for April 3rd, but I guess it was April 17th that we agreed as a Finance Committee to that. Okay. Anything else? Finance? Okay. Planning and policy.
Planning and policy has not met since our last meeting. We will be meeting before the May 20th meeting at 6 p.m. to review the policies that are up for review.
May 20th. And we have some under new business tonight that are first readings. Okay. May 20th is the next meeting, 6 p.m. Okay. Thank you. Teacher Curriculum Committee.
TCC met earlier this evening at 6 o'clock in here, and we went over 12 1% fund requests and approved those. Things are moving forward with 1%. We also had a little talk about how scheduling is going for next year and what that process is looking like. But we mostly spent most of the time going over 1% funds requests.
Yes, I understand the scheduling process is a huge effort.
It's a big
but-
process, and it seems like it's just getting bigger.
Okay, thank you. BAMS Committee.
BAMS Committee met last week. We spent most of the time discussing staffing issues and things that are going on with some of the staffing with open positions and filling positions and people on leaves and things like that. So we spent a lot of time talking about those things. We also got a report about the Green Mountain Star Plan and what that's going to look like as far as achievement planning and helping our kids do better. So we did that, and our next meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight at 6:30. So after planning and policy, but before this meeting in this room.
Very good. WRCC.
Has not met.
We have had a
We
RAB
had a-
meeting, and you'll probably mention that, right? Okay. Regional Advisory Board.
No.
Okay. Anything else for consent agenda?
Woody, I can just report on the SU Finance Committee. Last time we met, we mainly dealt with the transportation bid, which was taken care of at our special meeting at the SU. And I believe the food contracts are coming up, and we'll be reviewing those bids pretty soon. And our next meeting, I think, is on the 29th of the month at Central Office.
Are those open meetings?
Yeah, they're warned meetings.
May
So,
20.
May 29th.
What time are those?
They're at 5:15 usually,
PM.
p.m.
Yes.
After being on finance,
Yeah,
you
when does
know
finance
to ask that
start?
question.
We talked about making the 7 a.m. finance committee meeting.
Oh, that's too late for that.
Even
Yeah,
earlier.
Yeah, 5:15 is when I have it scheduled here.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do have one other thing for finance. Just a reminder that finance is not meeting day after tomorrow, May 8th, but we'll be meeting a week from this Wednesday on May 15th
Right.
at the usual hour.
Yes, and again on the 22nd.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it. Then there's a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Ruth?
Second.
Lori, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Administrative reports. Well, let's not be creative. Let's start down at the end there. Somebody's got a big...
I have I'm going to start with student news, since I brought along a second place trophy. We had 7 girls that went down. This second place is a national trophy for our cheerleading squad. They were at a regional competition a while back, and then they were down at Providence, Rhode Island just this weekend, and they took second place. They're very excited. The cheerleading squad consists of Annie Takis, Kayla Haskins, Omay Marshall, Rachel Pennell, Ankita Banu, Michaela Russo, Alyssa Corey, and their coaches are Diego Fernandez, Alexis Takai, sorry, and Antoinette Butler. And much of their time, they started out as a Beams program, a Beams activity, and were receiving support through Beams funding. And then they just started this competition and kept going. So a lot of the coaches really volunteered much of their time. They were there every day during vacation, on weekends, and just turning the multipurpose room into a cheerleading competition. So it's very exciting. They do have a link of their competition that we'll be putting on our webpage very soon. So that's good news for, that's why I had to bring my trophy along. Actually, not mine, the school's, theirs. I certainly cannot take any credit for it at all. Another award from our students section is Olivia Howe. Olivia Howe is a 7th grader. On her own, she wrote I guess she's been working on a novel. She's quite the writer, a very gifted writer. And she's been working on a novel called The Battle of Darkness. And she submitted it to the Brattleboro Art Museum's Scholastic Award and won a silver award for that. I believe that she's one of the youngest recipients of that award. And WCAX was at the school last week and interviewed her and had, I don't know if any of you saw it on the news, had a great little piece about her. They were here at the school. And again, that little blurb will be put on our website as well. So we're very proud of Olivia. Again, it was all on her own, very independent. Student news. Other news, speaking of beams and money, we did receive a grant. We were a little nervous at one point whether we were going to because of the funding at the government level being kind of tied up and sequestered, so we weren't really sure, but we did receive word that Beams was receiving a $60,000 grant for the year 2013 and 2014, so we're very happy about that. Some of the responses from our grant, I just want to read a few of these because it's quite impressive. Overall, they responded back to us, this obviously is a well-established program with excellent leadership. Cooperation and support between Beams After School and the Brattleboro area middle school is commendable. It was a very strong proposal, has demonstrated improved academic outcomes, excellent communication strategies. The program is effective and bears impressive results. And then it also talks about where is it? I don't know. But anyway, we're very, very pleased. And Betsy Stacy, who is really leading the charge on our Beams program, couldn't have been happier with getting that award. So we're happy about that.
Jerry, could you just remind us what the amount that we were seeking was? Because I remember reading that it was very close, that what we received was close to what we were seeking.
That might take me just a few minutes.
Okay.
I know this is the whole... We didn't receive all of it, but we were one of the top in the state, I believe. I think we had a 5% federal cut, 5% reduction. But some were getting much stronger. Out of 100 overall score, 0 out of 100, we received a 95.3% average for our grant.
Maybe that's the figure that I saw, because I remember seeing a figure.
That's a figure I can put my hands on, so that's the figure I'm happy with. Yeah. Other news, let's see. Sorry, Steve. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Ricky did mention about our Green Mountain Star. We had an action plan committee meeting just after the BAMS committee met, and our action plan did approve, decided that they were happy and did approve our Green Mountain Star as a final proposal. Had a few little minor things we needed to change and update a little bit. Our plan is next Tuesday at our staff meeting to go forward and present it to the staff. The staff has been very, very involved with the plan from the very beginning. So next week's is really, we're going to be rolling out that Green Mountain Star, already starting to look at here are our goals, here are the tasks, and so now what are we going to do, and let's move forward, let's get started right away. So that's the plan for next Tuesday with our Green Mountain Star plan. I do have a couple hiring things I would like to present. One is I'll start with a resignation, I guess, first. A letter of regret to inform you that I made a personal decision to return to Massachusetts. Plan to finish out my contract for this school year, but now be returning. That's Alan Pratt, who serves as our safety officer. So again, I will need board acceptance of this resignation for Alan Pratt, who's our safety officer.
Okay, we can do that now.
I move that we accept Alan Pratt's resignation with regret.
Second.
Second, down there.
I'm somewhere.
I'll give it to her.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it's accepted.
Great. And then we've had a few openings at BAM, certainly not as many as the high school has had, but one of our openings was for a science position on Team Draco. And so on behalf of Principal Crisco and our BAM's hiring committee that was made of Peggy Maxfield, Matthew Betts, Christy Henderson, and myself, I'd like to present Stephanie Pike as our science candidate for the 2013-2014 school year. Ms. Pike comes to us from Monadnock Regional Middle School in Swansea, New Hampshire, where she has taught grades 7-8 science since 2008. Prior to Monadnock, Ms. Pike taught within the Wyndham Southwest Supervisory Union for 3 years. Ms. Pike earned a bachelor's degree in natural resource studies from the University of Massachusetts and currently is licensed in Vermont as a 7-12 science educator. This position did receive over 40 applications. We interviewed 7 applicants. Ms. Pike will be replacing Ms. Jenny Magoon, science teacher on Team Draco. Hope that you will accept this recommendation to approve Ms. Stephanie Pike as a science teacher at Brattleboro Area Middle School effective July 1, 2013.
Is there a motion?
I move we accept Stephanie Pike as the new science teacher for Team Draco at Brattleboro Area Middle School.
Okay.
Why did she go from like Wyndham Southwest to Monadnock now here?
She currently resides in Halifax, so I can't tell you why she went from Wyndham Southwest. I think that but she's been at Monadnock since 2008, so she has longevity there. Was issued a contract, likes what she was doing, but again, with this opening coming up and living in Halifax, she decided that being closer to home would be worth her while. So that's why she applied. Very highly recommended from her school. I spoke with Jed Butterfield, who's a principal 712 at the school, talked to the assistant principal who's been there for a year, but also, again, speaks very highly of her. She's on a particular team. She's a team leader. They have team leader positions. So it's a loss. It's a loss for them, and certainly a gain for us.
Jane, did you get the second on that? Because
I think I put Sean now.
Next question. Okay.
I had to choose.
Any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? That's it for BAMS. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very active.
Quick question, follow-up on the Beams grant. Is that for a period of years like our current grant?
I believe that they've applied for a period. What they do is that right now they just they award it just a year at a time.
Okay.
But it was like a multi-year grant that they applied for.
Okay. Now we got a bunch to go through, I bet, huh?
Nothing going on, nothing to say.
Nothing going on. High school level?
We've actually been very busy. Friday, we celebrated our May Diversity Day, and it was a wonderful event. We had 12 panel discussions throughout the day, through blocks 1 through 3. Some highlights were a panel discussion on lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning, and how does a student work within the high school setting. Another one on hip-hop and social justice, which I actually stopped into that and it was kind of fun. Another one about social justice and how it is affected by climate change. And another very interesting one on decision-making in today's world, which really wasn't skewed towards any one diversity issue, but it was a very interesting to sit into and listen to about decision-making processes and what influences decisions at a personal level as well as at a larger group level. So it was enjoyable. And then we had a whole school, actually we have to do one half of the school at a time. We had a school-wide assembly in the auditorium to do a drumming celebration. And that is always a great event at the end of the day. And thanks to Michaela Sims for all of her work putting that together for us at the high school, and then all the work she's done getting Diversity Day ready at the district level. So it was great to have Michaela spearhead that initiative for us, as always. Also, this past weekend, beginning Friday night and into Saturday, Peter Canizero and the UHS Players presented the spring play, All in the Timing. And it was interesting, it was fun, it was great to see, and people that were there really enjoyed that as well. Last Friday, Bob Woodworth and Russ Janis joined the department heads and I in our action planning process, and we spent the day examining data from this year, everything from our NECAP data to our discipline data. Based on that, came up with action goals for next year. Those will be used by each department as they develop their own departmental action plan. And as required by NEASC, those goals, that action plan is tied to our new core values. And speaking of NEASC, last week, Doug Kroc, Rick Lane, and I accompanied Nancy Johnston to a seminar in West Hartford, Connecticut, to learn more about what the visit next November is going to look like. It's going to be an intense 3 days for all of us, and I mean all of us. The board is invited to a Sunday afternoon session to meet with the committee, and I'll give you more details and a timeline. The next step in the process is we have to arrange accommodations for our visiting committee, which is going to be between 16 and 18 people. And once we arrange those accommodations, we'll then be contacted by the chair of the committee, which hasn't been appointed yet. And then that chair and I will work out the details and the timeline for the visit. And as soon as I know all of that, I'll let you know as well.
Do we know the dates even or not?
Sunday, November 17th through Wednesday, November 20th.
So we'll have a meeting on Sunday the 17th.
What they'll do is they'll ask to speak, the committee will ask to speak to several board members and get your sense of the high school and how communication flows between the board and the rest of the high school. So I was going to bring you the whole timeline. I thought until I have the one that we're going to use, I should probably hold off on that. This Saturday is our prom. I was at a mall this Saturday, saw some of our students busily trying on and buying dresses and tuxedos and all kinds of fun stuff. The prom this year is going to actually be held right here at BOHS in the gymnasium, which I'm kind of excited about that. It's a chance for the class to save some money and use it for other things. And we've recommended to them that they talk to the Booster Club, because when they decorated the gymnasium for the Colonel Pride dinner, it looked phenomenal. I think Ron has been there for that event, and the gymnasium looks great. So I think they'll do a fine job at that, so we're excited about that. Our All-State Music Festival is going on May 9th through 11th up at Mount Mansfield Union High School. And as usual, we have several students that have been accepted to ensembles and will spend nearly 20 hours rehearsing for their Saturday concerts. Our musicians this year, including chorus, Julia Stevens, Amanda Rink, Kyra Johnston, Graham Glennon, and Sam Green. Molly Rice is going to be a part of the All-State Orchestra. And the All-State Band will be represented from BUHS students Ursula Casey, Ethan Manning, John Sawyer Shaw, Benson May, and Peter Green. So congratulations to those students and their accomplishments. And as usual, Steve Rice and Patty Meyer and Tom Mashaka do a great job with the All-State Band. We are getting ready for graduation. I know that's hard to believe. I just want to remind the board graduation will be Friday, June 14th. Senior night will be Friday, June 14th. And then senior awards night will be June 13th. And when we get the senior week schedule finalized, I'll be sure to pass on a copy. So we've done a little bit of hiring. We're still in process for a lot of the positions, and as we hire some positions, it creates openings within departments. So before I get to the appointments, let me give a kind of an update on where we are with other ones. We're still looking, and after tonight, I hope I can post some English positions. We have done a first-round interview for our health position. This Wednesday, I will be observing 3 candidates as they teach sample lessons in our health classes. Today, Ruth and I spent a little time together.
Just a little.
Interviewing diversity candidates, and the breadth and experience of those candidates is impressive. I know right now that Ruth and I could probably tell you with absolute certainty we're not going to go wrong, no matter who we choose out of a certain number of them.
We had a plethora of excellent candidates.
And we've met with both finalists for the counseling department head position. They've had a chance to meet with the department. They've had a chance to meet with the department head group, and they've also had a chance to meet with the administration. And we're extremely close to hiring in that position as well. I was hoping to have it ready tonight, but it's not, and I don't want to rush that process before we need to. So a couple of recommendations I'd like to make. First, actually 4. I am very pleased to recommend the appointment of Peter Canizero to be department head for the English department at Brattleboro Union High School. Mr. Canizero will replace Nancy Olson, who's retiring at the end of this year. Peter has taught here for 19 years, and 16 people applied for this position. We interviewed 6. The hiring committee consisted of Terry Apple, Ruth Barton, Daniel Cullinane, Andy Haas, Lyle Holliday, Nancy Johnston, Doug Kroc, and myself. I would ask the board to appoint Peter to that position.
I move that we appoint Peter Canizero to the English department chair position.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Approved.
I'm also very pleased to recommend the appointment of Ms. Karen Sebastian as Modern and Classical Language Department Head beginning this July. Karen will replace Judy Abascal, who is retiring at the end of this year. Karen has taught at Brattleboro Union High School since November of 1983, and she's also taught German at BAMS as well as at BUHS for many years. 17 people applied for this position, and we interviewed 7 candidates. The committee for this consisted of Maggie Cassidy, Chris Day, Michelle Hood, Nancy Johnston, Ruth Barton, and myself.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I move the appointment of Ms. Karen Sebastian for the Modern Classical Language Department chair position.
Second.
Lori with a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions?
Thank you.
Move on.
We know that Bill Jan is retiring at the end of this year, and I am extremely thrilled to recommend the appointment of Megan McLaughlin as a school counselor at Brattleboro Union High School. Megan received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary and Special Education from Keene State in 2005. I would also add she is a Brattleboro Union High School graduate. She received her Master's in School Counseling in 2011 from Keene State. She's currently working at Dummerston School as their school counselor, and was also a long-term substitute at Brattleboro Union High School in 2011. And it would be nice to have a McLaughlin come back into the building. I would ask that we appoint Megan McLaughlin to this position.
Mr. Chairman, I move the appointment of Megan McLaughlin as school counselor.
Okay, second.
Second.
Melanie. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? Unanimous once again.
Thank you. One more. Finally, I am pleased to recommend Ms. Mia McGorry for the position of physical education teacher. She will replace Cheryl Liverdoni, who is retiring at the end of this year. Mia is freshly minted with her bachelor's degree from Keene State College, and 90 people applied for this position. We interviewed 6. The committee consisted of Andy Haas, Bill John, Matt Mills, Chris Sawyer, and Ruth Barton. I would ask that we appoint Ms. McGlory as our new PE teacher.
I am very pleased to recommend, to move that we appoint Mia McGorry as physical education teacher. She is outstanding.
Little editorial there.
I can't help it.
I watched her sample. We watched the final sample lessons, and Mia's sample lesson was phenomenal. She actually had the interview committee playing in the game with her. So
Well, that's our basic standard, is phenomenal, right? You know,
that's where the bar starts.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstentions? No,
Melanie seconded it.
I was just watching people, and maybe not everybody voted.
And is that MCGOREY?
MCGORRY.
Okay,
I'm all set. Thank you.
you're all set? Well, huge amount of work, and thanks once again to Ruth.
Clarification question? BAM's graduation is on the 12th and BUHS graduation is on the 14th?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. We move on to the Career Center.
Speaking of phenomenal,
Nicely done.
Where's your prize? Where's your prize?
Where's your trophy?
actually they got first place.
Okay.
You wanted to use that. The Wyndham Regional Career Center of BLA took the state championship. Actually, they were the outstanding FBLA chapter of the year this year at the declared such at the annual gathering and at the Sheridan in Burlington, and it's to the credit of both the advisors, Mary Beth Cornell and Barb Fincy, and also really to the credit of all those students in that program. They worked really, really very hard to put the information together to get to the point where they are now. They're now campaigning locally, trying to get funds to go to the national conference. So we're hoping that's going to work out well also. While you're putting dates down, June 5th is the senior awards ceremony for the Wyndham Regional Career Center. And that would be held at the BAM's multi-purpose room.
What time?
I believe it's 6. I don't have an exact time just yet. And then other dates, while we're talking about it, the last Regional Advisory Board meeting of the year will be May 14th at 12 o'clock here in this room. And as Woody talked about earlier, we did have a RAB meeting right after the school break. And we reviewed the enrollment for the Career Center based on course requests that we received so far. And as of information I looked at just a little while ago, we're about 140 course requests ahead of last year. So we're in the process of putting that schedule together, which, as we've stated earlier, is harder and harder every year. That's about it.
The sending other schools are pretty well represented.
I think they're pretty well represented. At this time, it looks like more than last year. Roughly double. I think we're at 35 to 40 right now.
Okay, thank you. Central Office.
I'll be brief. At the last Supervisory Union Board meeting, I mentioned the reductions as a result of the federal sequestration of the Title I program in special ed. So I'll just run through the impact that you had with UHS number 6. There was a Title I math position that was eliminated. Fortunately, the math opening, the person was appointed to that math position, so that's a good thing for the school. And But there was the reduction of that along with other Title I academic support positions throughout the SU. In special ed, really the only impact was a district-wide position for out-of-district coordinator. And so we reduced that position and feel like we have special ed coordinators that will pick up that work. They'll need to do that. And then there were 2 open paraeducator positions that will not be filled. So we don't think that will have really any effect on the students, based on the number of students that we have coming in to BAMS in the high school. So it's unfortunate that we have to make those cuts, but I think we'll be okay with the existing staff that we have. Unless you have any questions about that, I'll keep moving. As Russ had mentioned, the next SU Finance Committee meeting is May 29th. And then tentatively, we're looking at June 4th for the next SU board meeting, Supervisory Union board meeting. And we're going to try to piggyback that with the Dummerston School Board meeting. So I'll have more information about that, but if the voting members, June 4th is tentative for that, probably something like 6:45.
Is there a special item?
Well, you could say that. The Finance Committee will be looking at my evaluation and working on my next contract. And so that'll be approved at the SU meeting. I'm sure there's other things, but what was your question?
If there was a special item, because it seems like the time between the 2 meetings is shorter than usual.
There's a few things that Jim needs to have done financially, so. But, yeah.
But we all get the agendas.
Yeah. And I don't think there were board policies at that last SU meeting, so I'm sure there'll be a new set of 5 as well.
Okay. I'll put you on the spot, but could you just, either you or Steve, give us a little update on the, now we're completing the 2nd year of the time change, and we did year 1 and we continued on in year 2. Some feedback on that? Or is the plan to...
Yeah, I actually didn't have material to present tonight. I guess I didn't think that was coming up tonight.
Okay,
but
all right.
we could put
Well,
something
I wasn't necessarily looking for major data, but maybe we can just review it before we get to the end of the school year. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Board chair report. I just have a couple of items. One is that the VSBA has a teleseminar coming up this Thursday night at 6 p.m. I don't know if any of you have ever participated in these. I found them very helpful. I think I've taken 2 of them. And this one is the basic important work of school boards. And it's not only, it's a great value to somebody who's relatively new. I know we have mostly veterans here. But I found it to be worthwhile. And if you go on the website is www.gotomeeting.com, and you can find out about it. And it's I think worthwhile. If you participate, there is a small fee paid by the supervisory union. But I think it's a worthwhile investment. So that's this Thursday at 6 p.m. Just a comment on the action planning process that Russ and I were involved with. I found that a definite worthwhile use of a good share of a day, other than the fact that it was about 95 degrees here in the meeting room. But it was really worthwhile, and what I really appreciated was seeing the folks, and I don't very often see it, like all the department heads basically, and we broke up into small groups, and it was extremely useful to me, not only the content, but watching the interaction and getting a chance to see our team, our leadership team, which is quite impressive in action.
If I could add, I thank you for inviting me. To see it no pun intended, in action, but developing an action plan, and the thought that went into it was good, and it'd be nice to have more interactions like that as time goes on.
Okay. That's all I have. I think that covers all those items. Okay. Any unfinished business? Nothing on the agenda. Okay, we move on to new business.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
I was hoping to attend, but I didn't have an opportunity to. The meeting on the 25th that took place here, was it?
Community forum, the community
Forum.
dinner. Yeah.
Did anyone
Yes.
have a chance to attend it? Was there anything that was worthy of noting to the board or to the?
Well, I'll go out on a limb a little bit and say that I thought it was perhaps not terribly deep in content. It was interesting to meet with some folks that some of whom are new to me. But I would have to be honest and say that I didn't think it really got too deep. I'm happy to have others.
I would just say that the theme, the statewide theme is kind of redesigning high schools or looking at alternative practices for high schools, and I think our district is doing a lot of that. So some of the themes or topics that they were throwing out, we've been doing that. I think one of the things that they were hoping for was more community outreach, and we had a number of people from the community, but not as many as we had hoped. So in that sense, it was nice to bring some people in to give them a sense of what was going on. But
I guess I'm curious to see, they gathered a lot of information from people. So, the folks from the agency took in a lot of information, and I'm curious, and we don't know yet what's going to happen with that information. I'd be curious to see how the meeting in Brattleboro compared to the one in Rutland and compared to the one, in Burlington, to see how those, what kind of consistency is there? Are there regional things that we should look at? But I think as Woody said, there wasn't a lot of depth given to us, but it was more of a one-way conversation where we offered ideas and discussed things.
Is there anything in the works to kind of feed back that information to you?
They really didn't say, but I would assume there would be. At some point, they'll distribute something to all of us. They took emails down, so I'd assume at some point they'll share with us.
they talked about the collection process, because I think there were 7 meetings throughout the state, so they had to cull that all together, and there'll be a summary probably beginning of the summer.
And it is appreciated that they were listening. We're doing that. Okay.
Cafe Services provided a great...
They did a great meeting.
Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah. Okay, so we're on to new business, and the first item is press box. And I will, without having the exact number notes in front of me, review the situation. By all means, Steve, chime in, or members of the Finance Committee. Last year's grandstand project, which was approved, involved pretty much the entire project. However, that did not, within that project, contain allowance for a press box. The concept there was that that would be at least partially funded by way of donations, raising money to replace the press box. We are at the point now where we're almost finished with this school year, and before we know it, we'll be launching into next year. The press box is primarily used during football games, but also has, it's all part of the public address system, the ability to communicate there, which will impact other events, track meets, relays, graduation, a bunch of things. So we need to have a press box. So, having said that, we've had Robert Clark do some work on this with some help from Stevens Engineering to make sure we were looking at this from the right perspective. And we have a proposal to put out, request for proposal for a press box, and we are using the sum of $56,000 as a not to exceed. Of that $56,000, just about half we have in hand from collections, the sale of the old bleachers, and I believe a small amount left.
Scrapping of the other bleachers, too.
Pardon?
We also scrapped the original bleachers.
Right, the scrap from the original bleachers, and a little bit left in the main project. So that means that we need to, that's half of it. So we have approximately $27,500 or $28,500 left. And our request a month or so ago was to take a look at where we might be able to finish that off so we can get moving. We need to get moving. And after review of the finances and the budget, it's determined that we have adequate space in the salary part of our plant operations and maintenance. That's about a $2.2 million budget. And it's being handled, managed well. We have made some changes in custodial coverage and salary, so we have some room in there. So that is the place that we can, staying within our total operating budget quite nicely, we can get the balance of that committed and move forward. So Robert and Steve, I guess, wish to put out official request for proposals. The $56,000 includes a 15% contingency. It includes everything, the press box, professionally done, delivered, set up, hooked up, and everything except announcers put in it, right?
Right.
So what we would like to have the blessing of the board. I mean, it's within our current budget, but it is a little different expenditure of funds than what originally the budget called for. So we wanted to run it by the whole board.
And there has been some fundraising done, and letters of request have gone out. We've gotten some response from that. For example, the class of 1964 gave a generous donation. Some other groups within the community, some businesses have donated. We're going to continue that process as well. I mean, we're not going to stop asking. One of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at taking and having businesses put banners up on the backside of the grandstand for a certain amount of time for a certain fee, using that as a source to help kind of offset the cost of the press box. So, and some other businesses have not yet responded with donation requests. We're still anticipating that as well. But as Woody said, I don't know that we can wait that long.
Is it normal to shift money between such violently divergent areas of the budget? I mean, payroll to press box, that's quite the shift on a budget that is approved on line items by the whole town.
Yes, well, actually, that's not quite correct. The budget is approved in total by the town, and not specifically on line items, but we wanted to, and this is based on Jim Kane's recommendation, we wanted to stay within the operations and maintenance budget because it falls under that. I would imagine that there's probably other areas in operations and maintenance, individual areas that we could pick a little, because the operations and maintenance budget is in pretty good shape with about a month to go. So we could do it that way. That was one place that we had, because of some changes we've made, had a significant opportunity to take it from there.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it's the wrong choice. It just seems an odd place to get money from.
Maybe. I'm not quite sure what would be the more logical choice. I mean, this isn't a everyday common thing that happens, but the budgets are approved a long time ago, a long time ahead of time, and sometimes things change and you got to move things around a little bit.
I think historically, when the whole redoing the bleachers and all of that, there was this sense that there may be money for the press box. When I think the bids came in or the pricing came in, we realized that that would exceed the bond total of that particular item. But thinking about through fundraising and some surplus matching that together, it would be nice to try to get it accomplished this year as opposed to try to put it into a bond next year. So I think when Jim worked with Steve and the Finance Committee thinking about, so how can we do this so it won't impact this year's budget, I think he was creative to do that. So I'm glad that it wouldn't be a separate item next year.
And not to argue the point, but just to clarify for me, I know that witnessed some expenditures we've kind of rejected at the Putney level because there were rules about, I don't know if it was just bond related, but you couldn't apply them to things outside of the parameters of that particular budget. And so I don't know if this money is coming from within that.
No, that was a separate, the Putney project was a three-year phase project, so those were figures not to exceed. And I think in some cases there were either surpluses or money that could be applied through a vote of the board. That was the requirement in that case. And that's why I think Bob is bringing it to finance initially and then to the full board.
Okay. Just from my experience on the discussions at the Finance Committee level, just to note that the salary is within the operations and maintenance budget, so it's a component of the operations and maintenance budget, which is, I think, broad enough to include something like a press box for the bleachers.
It does give me pause though, because I thought we had like a bare bones budget. Now we have like $20,000 in surplus, but
out of a $25 million budget,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad, but I bet you maybe we could find another $25,000 somewhere else. But has any thought been given to like raising ticket prices for a year or two, or have the Booster Club funnel some money for the next 2 years back to the board, or some way of funding it that way?
Well, that's two separate questions,
Yeah.
and I do know that the Booster Club supports this. They have a lot of things on their plate that they're trying to raise money for. In terms of ticket prices, I'm not. Maybe you would comment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's going to generate enough of the revenue we're looking for.
What's
And I guess
the attendance?
Well, it really depends on the game. I mean, if the weather's nice, attendance is great. If weather's bad, nobody shows up. The other thing is, at this point, and part of the reason I'm excited about the press box is sports like soccer are now getting more popular. And I think that we're going to move more of those night games onto that field because now it can be a wider field. It can accommodate soccer. I'm wondering if that's going to help the gate too. They'll have more people there.
And also lacrosse, there have been as many people at the last couple of lacrosse games, I would say, are close to it as there have been at football games, which is pretty much, that's a new phenomenon. What is it, the ticket price for football, is it $4?
It's $4, right? And the students less.
Yeah.
I guess I worry about people that it is their source of entertainment. I don't know that I'd go much higher.
Yeah, I don't think you go much higher than $4. Yeah, but
You've been
So,
looking at this for
unless we have a really, really good team.
well, it's, a special game, administration versus students or something, football game like that. That'd be a good one.
I don't know about that, tackle, but no
As
tackle.
long as the board can participate.
Sure.
We'll run it. No.
Oh, no.
No. I think Mike would make a great nose tackle.
I think so. I think Russ, you've got a cornerback all over you.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll just say the Finance Committee, the administration, and others have been looking at this for almost a year, trying to find a way to pay for it, so it's not something that was just a whim.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move that we approve spending up to $56,000 for a press box. The funding to come from a variety of sources, including donations and money in the operation and maintenance budget.
All within the current budget.
All within the current budget.
I'll second.
Second from Melanie. Got that? Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Move ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Item B, advocating for enhanced information flow from law enforcement and mental health. Discussion.
So you should have, actually, your SU board reps, as well as others that attended the SU meeting last week, had this document, and I think all of you received it now, that the Putney Central board had asked that each board review this document, and what they're trying to do is present it at the next Vermont School Board Association meeting, which is later this month. So you all have that document?
I've seen it, yeah.
I wonder if it would be appropriate for the policy committee to take something like this up. It seemed.
Yeah, I think one of the problems would be the timing. I mean, I have no problem with it, but I think they're hoping for the May 23rd meeting of the Vermont School Board Association at their annual conference that they'd like to, spring conference, May 23rd. So actually, is planning and policy meeting on the 23rd?
We are meeting on the 20th. Although I'm not sure that this is really a policy issue.
Yeah, it doesn't really require action. It's, I think, just the consensus of, yeah, we support the idea of if there's legislation that can provide more information within the scope of confidentiality laws to law enforcement, mental health, and to school personnel, we would certainly support that. I don't know if there's much they can do, quite frankly.
So that's the gist of it. It
Yeah.
probably is good to, for the purposes of on TV, to just get the basic gist of it. Maybe can you just elaborate a little bit more based on what it...
Yeah, it's talking about the concern about the flow of information between law enforcement, mental health facilities, and school administrators. As a board, we are planning to raise our concern with the Vermont School Board Association, specifically asking for clarification of the reporting requirements for mental health agencies and law enforcement when there is a threat directed at schools and/or school personnel. We encourage that the board and others to advocate for advanced information flow in future threats, crisis situations. We will be asking the VSBA to the following questions. What are the duty to warn responsibilities of mental health clinicians in Vermont? Should the law be updated legislatively to reflect current day realities? Can the legislature make it a felony to threaten school personnel? Is there any existing law that addresses this issue? Is this intersection between mental health, law enforcement, and education? Who is responsible for following a threat until it is no longer considered an active concern? How do reporting requirements affect the flow of information between school administrators and student families? That's it.
Okay, and they're looking for consensus that we agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably doesn't need to be in the form of a motion.
No, I think just the notion that you support the idea that they're going to try to advance this at the next Vermont School Board Association meeting.
It looks like they're basically asking questions.
Yeah, so that being the case, I wasn't sure what there was for us to have a consensus on. Because they're just, it's questions.
Basic questions, you support more information coming to us? Yeah. Within the scope of the law. I mean, I think that's how I interpret this, and whether laws would have to change related to current practice. You know, there are confidentiality laws, there's FERPA laws, so I think the legislature is looking at this right now anyway.
So everybody okay with the consensus that we will let them ask the question?
And hopefully they'll get back to us if they have any answers. Right.
I completely agree with Ron's wording. I'm not sure that the document that we saw really says that.
If it does, then yes.
Selective
But
interpretation.
if that is the correct interpretation, then yes, I support that.
Okay, good. All right, policy review. Yeah.
All right, we have a number of policies for first reading. C9, board commitment to non-discrimination. D12, policy on prevention of harassment of employees. E9, comprehensive HIV policy for schools, pre-K through 12. F12, transportation. F31, policy on the prevention of bullying of students. And LBP 7, school animal policy. It's just first reading. They're out there for anyone to give any initial feedback, and we'll be discussing these in depth, or as much depth as we can, on our planning policy meeting on the 20th. There's one important to come. I'd call specific attention to F31. Bullying is a major issue and a hot button issue for very good reasons. That's about all I have to say about them at this point in time.
I would just add that the bullying policy was separated and taken out of the harassment, the former harassment policy. And so prior to this, schools had already made adjustments to their student handbooks related to the difference between harassment and bullying and the training associated with that. So this policy essentially falls in line with our practice.
All these policies have just been recently adopted by the SESU, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, with the exception of the local policy, which is just up for review.
Okay, yeah.
The past, actually.
Okay, any initial questions on these? So these will appear for the second reading at our next meeting, which will have been after the policy committee reviews them.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, it seems, like I mentioned this before, it seems like the policy committee is the only committee that really advances an agenda. So what would the procedure be to ask the other committees to advance an agenda? Advance an agenda in advance of their meetings? We know it's going to be on the agenda for the next policy committee, but what's on the agenda for the other?
Yeah, the Finance Committee also has an agenda which generally comes out rather close to the meeting. And I believe just goes to finance members, or does anybody else get that one? Okay, well, that could happen. In the case of BAMS and the TCC, is that generally
It's usually helped, partially generated by the school and what's going on with the schools, but we can work on getting that more information out about that ahead of time.
And the WRCC committee?
In the SU Finance, it isn't always email. Sometimes we get it when we're at the meeting. In fact, that's fairly typical. But I could talk to Jim about distributing that in advance.
There is not a required timeline for an agenda in a subcommittee meeting, I don't believe. It seems like they're there usually is something, but it sometimes is when you get to the meeting.
Well,
I'm not concerned about reporting or warning requirements, but one of our goals as a board is to attend committee meetings, even if we're not a member. And so it's really helpful in trying to decide which meeting to attend. Well, what's on the agenda?
right, right, that's a good point. I was just going to say that everyone is invited to all committee meetings. All board members are invited to all committee meetings. So if having an agenda ahead of time would make you decide that that would be the one you'd like to go to, or maybe that would be the one you'd like not to go to, that will be helpful.
Well, I know on the SU board, or the website, they do have certain meetings, just little notifications at the board page.
Yeah.
I don't know that I always see every committee represented, but some of them almost always are. And I'm wondering if that could be like a thorough, we just get everybody to put those notices that the meetings are coming up on that site, because I do check that. My email has been failing pretty regularly, so I was not getting word about anything.
If TCC, if we know what the topic is, and I'm assuming in most cases right now it's been hiring, I don't know if that's reviewed with TCC or not. No, so, or 1% funding and things like that. You know, that could go out on, like on the agenda of this meeting. It's got a listing of the committee meetings,
When they are.
and it could have a little bullet of the particular main topic, if that was the case.
I think those are the ones that were on the site, on the SU site. At the other committees, I would love to be able to, if I saw the date, maybe I could make it, be able to come if I have the dates a little bit more accessible.
Well, as far as the finance, that could easily be just added, the rest of the board added to that. That would be 4 more or 5 more people added to it. I'll talk with Jim about that. That's fairly straightforward. However, I will say that it's usually not a long time in advance of the meeting that we get the agenda. It's usually 2 or 3 days ahead. So that's a point well taken.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else for the good? Yes. No.
I do have just one other question. You mentioned board goals. And on the Putney board, we actually had 4 goals that were issued on every agenda. And we have every year we review those goals. And I've never seen the goals for this particular board. And I don't know if there is such a...
Well, we did have a session towards the end of the summer where we established an action plan. Maybe you were on the board then, right?
I was on the board in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the items was to have everybody attend at least one session of each of the other committees that they weren't on. But they're not listed on the agenda every time, but that works as a reminder. We will be planning another such session as we begin the next school year to discuss what we should be working on at the board. Okay. Any other? Lori?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
She beat you, Ruth. Ruth.
That's second.
You do that. Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Okay, thank you all very much.